Okay, thanks, Teresina. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Kelly Maloney. I'm a Senior Product Manager here at Coreworx, and I'm very excited to have this opportunity to demonstrate to you our Coreworx interface management solution. Before I get to that, I had a couple of slides that I want to share with you. For those of you who are maybe new to interface management or didn't have the opportunity to see Alan Kendall's presentation, I was going to cover a little bit on the concepts of interface management. Basically, interface management is a risk mitigation tool that's used to raise awareness of interface issues and to drive accountability. The interface management process is used to identify and document project interfaces, define roles and responsibilities at each interface, and then to facilitate ongoing communication between interfacing parties regarding the technical exchange of information and the timing for providing that information. If we look at our formal definition here as provided by the Construction Industry Institute, it reads that interface management is the management of communications, relationships, and deliverables among two or more interface stakeholders. There's many factors that are driving the need for products like Coreworx and really driving an increased awareness in interface management and the need for interface management. We're talking about larger projects. Projects are multi-year in duration and multi-billion dollar in scope. They often involve complex scope that include global delivery teams. So delivery teams are located around the world, which adds to the complexity of managing that communication and that interaction between those teams. We have complex contracting strategies and certainly complex communication matrix that needs to be supported. If I can just draw your attention to the iceberg example that we have here, this is an example of a $5 billion capital expansion project that I worked with one of our clients. This particular client has a very disciplined approach to managing project interfaces and a very mature interface management practice that they use on their projects. They also define that a feed deliverable is the creation of the preliminary interface register. So for this particular project, coming out of feed, they had identified 2,000 interfaces. And they had estimated somewhere in the range of 10,000 interface agreements to support those 2,000 interfaces. And of course, those interface agreements can go through multiple revisions. But what I find really fascinating is if you look at the bottom of that iceberg there is the 100,000 task-related transactions. So this is all the back and forth communication that needs to occur in order to support those 10,000 interface agreements that are supporting those 2,000 interfaces that are being managed as part of the register. So even though this is an example of a very large project, the concept and discipline of interface management is applicable to all projects. You know, the need to properly manage interfaces and ensure consistent design and reduce rework during construction is applicable regardless of project size. So for today, we have three areas. You know, Alan Kendall's presentation was able to take his recommendations and the best practices that he's implemented on his projects and group them into the following categories. So we'll start off with scope definition and delineation. This is the identification of the work packages and the interface points that define the boundary between those work packages. So this is the early work that goes on during the feed stage of a project. And then we'll take a look at how Coreworx supports that early stage and that early identification. The second category was really around communication and collaboration. So this is supporting that exchange of information during the execution stages of your project. And again, we'll hop into Coreworx and we'll take a look at how Coreworx supports that in our solution. And then finally, we'll talk about the need to monitor, control, and measure progress. So Coreworx provides to our projects a number of reporting and graphical dashboards to help them to measure that progress and ensure that their interface program is on track. Another method of monitoring and controlling is through schedule integration. This may be new to some of you, so we'll touch on how Coreworx supports integration with the project schedule to further ensure that your interface activity is on track and aligned with the project schedule. All right, so the first thing that we want to focus on here is scope definition and delineation. One of the first tasks to be completed in support of your interface management program is the development of the interface register. We talked about how some organizations have included this as a feed deliverable, so it's very common and certainly a best practice to define that preliminary interface register during the feed stage of your project. And when we're talking about interfaces, we're really talking about the boundary between two scopes of work, or the point where the responsibility for a physical system or connection transfers from one party to another. Interfaces are used to define the scope of work under the responsibility of a contractor, which may influence or be influenced by the scope of work covered by another contractor. The majority of the time, we're talking about physical interfaces. However, interfaces can be organizational, contractual, or even environmental in nature. The purpose of defining that interface register is initially to define scope split. You want to identify that those boundary conditions or the scope split between the major work packages on your project. It's also used to define roles and responsibilities with the ultimate goal of ensuring that you are managing those gaps and potential overlaps in the scope of work. And also, as Alan mentioned, it's very important to ensure that your interfaces are included in the contracts. So this is your opportunity to get that interface information and that scope split in the invitation to bid process. Coreworx supports identifying and documenting interfaces by using the interface point form. The interface point really is the basis that builds your initial register. But through the use of a standard form, you can ensure that your business rules are enforced and your data is captured in a consistent manner. With the interface point form, we will document and describe the interface. And it's very common for interfaces to be identified by metadata such as area, system, and discipline. Coreworx also supports the ability to dynamically capture and display attributes based on the discipline that's chosen for the interface point. For example, a piping interface will capture pressure, temperature, and flow rate, whereas a civil interface will capture technical data such as location or elevation. Part of the interface point is also the identification of the scope packages. So where is this boundary? Who are the interfacing parties for this particular interface? Post-award, the contractors will be identified. So Coreworx has a process to go through and update the interface register as the contract award process is completed. And finally, most organizations are really looking to implement best practices and to standardize across all of their projects. But you also want to make sure that you have that flexibility and ensure that you can meet project-specific requirements when needed. So the interface point form can be tailored to meet those project-specific requirements. The last thing I want to touch on here is the interface register. The online interface register is a tool that's used to keep track of, monitor, and document interfaces, and also the exchange of interface information. Coreworx provides a central repository of information that can be accessed at any time from anywhere. And what's nice about this is that all delivery teams and all interfacing parties are contributing to and updating a single register. It's that single source of truth for project interfaces on your project. And I'm sure as many of you out there recognize, and as a project team managing project interfaces, you no longer have to manage and merge, multiple spreadsheets that are coming in from multiple teams. And it's also very secure. So the data is secure in the Coreworx system through a roles-based security model. Access to interface data is controlled. And for most projects, access and visibility to interfaces is controlled by those interfaces that you're a party to. So when you execute a search or you execute a report in the system, the interface, the data that's returned to you are those interfaces that you're a party to. And of course, the project team has full access and control over the entire register. All right, so this takes us to our first demonstration. I'm going to log on to the Coreworx system as a number of actors today, and our first actor is Ian. Ian is the interface manager for the project team. Our project here today is a refinery project. FEED is complete, and the invitation to bid process is well underway. In fact, you'll see when we get into the system that a number of scopes of work have already been awarded, and those contractors are already in and using Coreworx. So today, Ian has three things that he wants to accomplish. He's going to review that contract award and review the scope package breakdown. He's going to create one more additional interface point. So in support of an invitation to bid process that's about to occur for the site prep package, Ian needs to create one more interface point. And then he's going to go ahead and we're going to demonstrate to you how you can export those interfaces to support that invitation to bid process and develop that interface bid package. Right, so I'm just going to log on. I'm going to pop over here to our Coreworx system, and I'm going to log on to the system as Ian. So for those of you that are new to Coreworx, our user interface here is designed to be flexible and provide ease of use to users. Functions and features should be a click of a button, and it should be fairly easy for users to create new requests in the system and to manage queries that they need to respond to. You'll notice that we have two main menus here. We have our Projects tab, and this is where we support projects using our Project Information Management System. And we have document control features such as transmittals, RFI, deliverables management, and change management process. Today, though, our focus is on the interface management application, so we're going to remain in this area of the Coreworx application and focus on interface management. You'll notice that within this application, we have a number of submenus that are available to users. This helps them to easily navigate throughout the application. You'll see we have new requests, search, reports, and the ability to view the dashboard. Those are our graphical view of the interface register. So to start off with, Ian's is actually going to access the packages page here. And he's just going to take a look at the scope breakdown for this particular project. We have quite a few. There's 16 scope packages that have been identified for this project. And you can see that a number of them have already been awarded to a contracting party. All right, so that invitation to bid process is underway. Contractors are beginning to come in and access the system. Now, Ian has a number of ways to view the scope as it relates to interface for each of these scope packages. He could do so from viewing a report or a graphical dashboard. But another method, and what we're going to look at today, is the ability to search that online register. So this is ability for the project team, as well as external contractors and delivery teams to view the register to get a good understanding of their scope as it relates to interface. So Ian's going to go ahead here, and we're going to filter the interface register by the SRU and utilities package. So this list provides Ian with a quick view of the different scope packages. And I'm going to also go ahead and filter it by the piping discipline. So we're going to execute our search, and we're going to have our search results returned that display all of the piping interfaces for the SRU and utilities package. And if I just scroll through here, we can see, if we look down in the bottom right-hand corner, that there are 15 interfaces that'll be managed by the SRU and utilities scope package that are related to the piping discipline. So the other thing that Ian wants to do today, after taking a look at his scope breakdown, is he needs to create one additional interface point in the system. So we're going to go ahead and click on New Request. We're going to open up the interface point form here. And as you can see, the form is open, and there's a number of fields that need to be populated. Fields that are identified with a red asterisk are called required fields. So that's information that has to be provided in order to create a successful interface in the system. And the fields that you see here in gray, these are system-generated fields. So these will be populated by the work process that backs the interface point creation. So those will be generated, those will be populated as the interface point goes through its life cycle. So we're going to create a civil interface here. We'll call this our access road northern boundary. Okay. There's a number of values that are available to your users. So this helps to ensure that you have consistency in data capture. You're consistently capturing the same information for your interface points as opposed to sort of free text fields that, are prone to error and misuse. Our discipline here, in this case, we're going to pick civil, and we'll select our maintenance area as the area where this particular access road is located. When completing the interface point form, you want to identify the scope package. So where's the boundary? Where's that exchange of information and collaboration need to occur for this particular interface point? For this one, we have our scope breakdown is the site prep package and the infrastructure support facilities. So you'll notice when I selected the site prep package, our contractor and interface manager are not yet known. That's because this package has not gone out for award yet, and that process still needs to happen. So we do not yet know who the contractor is who will be managing that scope of work. However, we do see that for the infrastructure support facilities, we have McMillan and Burns has been awarded that contract, and our interface manager for that contractor is Jacob Robert. So he'll be managing and supporting the interface register for his particular contracting party. I scroll a little bit further down here, and I'm going to kind of go through this fairly quickly. You see down here, here's the key technical fields I was referring to earlier. So we have location, elevation, width, and grade. So these are technical fields that are applicable to a civil interface. If I just go back up for the purpose of this demonstration and just switch this temporarily to a piping discipline, now we have a piping interface that we're creating, and scroll back down, you'll notice how the key technical fields have changed. So these are technical fields and data that needs to be exchanged and agreed upon that are applicable to a piping interface. Okay, so I'm just going to go back up and I'll switch that back to civil. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to copy my title into the description field of this particular interface point. I'll add a little bit of more information here. More information is better. You want to be as clear as you can when creating your interfaces and to support the contractors that will be managing them. Of course, key references can also be added here. So if you have additional information that you want to provide, additional reference documentation, you can do so. Comments can be added. So as this interface goes through its life cycle, comments will be added along the way. And we also support the ability to upload file attachments. So it's very common with interfaces is to add additional information and documentation when necessary. So we support that through the ability to upload file attachments. So my interface point form is created. I'm going to go ahead and submit. And when I do that, a number of things are going to happen. Coreworx is going to go ahead and is going to assign a document number to this interface. So we'll have a document number assigned. The creation of that document number is a configurable process in Coreworx. So every project and every organization have their different requirements and policies around the creation of a document number. So we support that. We'll also create a PDF version of this particular document in the system, and continually that information will be updated as this interface point goes through its life cycle. If those packages had both been awarded, those two parties would be notified that a new interface had been added to the system that falls under their responsibility, and they would have the ability to comment on that and to approve or reject the creation of that new interface that falls under their scope. So the other thing I wanted to point out here on the home page, Ian has the ability to monitor the tasks and activities that he is creating in the system or that he's responsible for responding to. So again, if the contractors had been on board for that particular interface, they would receive a request here that they could respond to and comment on the creation of that new interface point. For the purpose of this demo now, Ian is ready to support that invitation to bid process. He wants to create the interface bid package for the site preparation package. So I'm going to go ahead and execute another search here. I'm not going to filter it by discipline in this case. I'm just going to go ahead and find all of the interfaces that involve the site prep package. Actually, I apologize. There is one thing I want to do. I do want to filter it by lead. So I want to find all those interface points where the site preparation package is identified as the lead contractor. You'll see here that we have 3 different interfaces. These are all going to fall under the scope of the site prep package. And down in the bottom right-hand corner here, we offer the ability to export interface data in a number of formats. We can export to PDF booklet, or we can export to Excel format. So it's very common for projects and for interfacing teams to occasionally have the need and the requirement to export that information, whether they're taking that to a meeting or including it in a monthly report. We support that. In this particular instance, Ian is going to go ahead and he's going to export these interfaces in PDF format for inclusion in the invitation to bid process. Now, a message pops up here indicating to the user that, this can be a lengthy process, and that really depends on the number of interfaces that are included in this scope package. We have very few here. There's only 3 interfaces included at this time, so this process will go fairly quickly. But we do want to inform the user that, if they had, 200 interfaces here, it does take a little bit of time to go through and generate that a PDF version and that PDF booklet so in support of downloading that. So I have a message here that I will receive a notification when this process is complete, and I can export it from my work items inbox. So I'm just going to pop back over here to my home page, and I'm going to take a look at my Coreworx inbox here, and I see that process is already complete. My PDF booklet has been generated, and I can now go ahead and download that. All right, I'll click here. You see we have a cover sheet here. It provides details of what the PDF booklet or what's included in this particular PDF booklet. And then the user has the ability to download this PDF booklet. Now, IE has opened that in another window on me. I'm just going to click here and bring up that download. Now, Ian has the ability, of course, to save this and then provide it to the contracts team, or for this demonstration, I'm just going to open it up and show you what that would look like. Here we have our PDF booklet, we have our cover sheet, and then we have a PDF version of each of those interfaces that were included in that PDF booklet or that export process. Okay, I'm just going to shut this down. When Ian has successfully downloaded that information, he's just going to remove this from his inbox, click execute, and that item's removed from his inbox. So Ian has been able to successfully, create a new interface point for the site prep package, and then export that information into PDF booklet. And that completes that part of our demonstration. I'm just going to log off here, and I'll pop back to our presentation. And we'll carry on into our next topic, which is the communication and collaboration. So interface management is really all about communication. It's about ensuring that your interface teams are communicating and sharing information to successfully manage those project interfaces. During engineering, you want to ensure consistency in design. During construction, you're communicating to manage and coordinate field activities. And during commissioning, you're communicating in support of inspections and in testing. So the key to ensuring that you have good communication is identifying your stakeholders. With interface management, you're going to have direct stakeholders, those that are directly involved in managing project interfaces and communicating with one another. And you're also going to have indirect stakeholders, those that may not be directly involved, but certainly need to be kept informed and aware of the communication that's occurring and the decisions that are being made. So identifying these stakeholders is part of your communication strategy. And the tool that's used with interface management to support your communication strategy and identify those interface stakeholders, and Alan touched on this in his presentation, is the creation of the interface management master plan. So this is a document that describes the policies and procedures that will be used to manage interfaces on your project. It's the rules of engagement. It sets expectations and ensures that everyone has a common understanding of how interfaces will be managed. Also included in that document is the tools that will be provided to the project team. So how will they communicate? How will the interface register be managed? So it's very important to support your communication strategy and to support your interface master plan by providing your teams with a common platform and the tools that they need to be successful. And these tools and platforms, are very important. They're certainly more efficient. They provide that collaboration capability, but they also will ensure that, your program is the communication is in compliance with the plan, and that you're ensuring that consistency in data capture and data exchange. So the two main tools that we'll be looking at today certainly is that interface register and the interface agreement tool. So in Coreworx, we manage that communication by using the interface agreement. Interface agreements are related to an interface point. We have a parent-child relationship there, and they're really used to document and track the exchange of information between interfacing parties and delivery teams. What's important is that they capture the request, and they also capture that agreed upon need date. So an interface agreement is an agreement between two parties that a particular piece of information or document will be exchanged on or before a particular date. So it's very important that that information is captured and logged and managed to ensure that those deliverables are being met on an ongoing basis. The other very key component to an interface agreement form and a more structured process for managing this communication is that we will record all the conversations that occur. So if you think back to that iceberg, this is that 100,000 task-related transactions that occur. So all the back and forth that needs to occur in order to support, an interface agreement and to support the, multitude of interfaces that you're managing in your register. I remember one interface manager once describing to me that having to manage interfaces via, email and spreadsheet was really chaos. That there was lots of confusion and lots of disorder, and that's really because, unlike our interface agreement that we have here, email does not provide visibility. There's no way to prioritize your tasks and drive accountability. Certainly no way to report and measure progress, and also no way to enforce that governance and consistency in data capture and communication. So your business rules are enforced and your data is captured in a consistent manner. And also very important is that we have a full audit trail if that's required or needed down the road for litigation purposes. So we track for every interface who said what when. I want to go through you quite quickly what the work process looks like. We've implemented best practices in the routing and life cycle of an interface agreement. And this slide here demonstrates what that process looks like. Most often, an interface agreement is raised in the system by a discipline lead or a technical engineer on the project. So over here on the left-hand side, we have contractor A, who's going to be raising an interface agreement with contractor B. The interface agreement is raised in the system, and it goes to that interface manager who acts as that single point of contact for that scope of work or for that contracting party. He reviews that for completeness and consistency, and then routes that request over to the interface manager on the responding side, or contractor B in this presentation. That interface manager will send that request to one of his discipline leads who are supporting him. On or before the agreed upon need date, a response is provided. It's filtered through that single point of contact and interface manager. The response is sent back to the requesting party, and then ultimately down to the individual who raised that request and now has that response. So this is kind of a typical flow. It doesn't demonstrate all the notifications and alerts that are built into this process. So there's a number of events in Coreworx that can, trigger a notification or an alert to the project team. So that's all built into the process. The other thing that you see here through that dotted line and the top of the pyramid here kind of is that owner representative or the client, or possibly it's the PMC who's managing the project. But this allows them to be as involved in this process as they choose to be. So Coreworx is very flexible with configurable options in our system. We recognize that every project is unique and every project has different requirements. So this is our ability to include the owner representative, be this a scope manager or an interface manager. They can be directly involved in this process where they insert themselves in the middle and they want to review and approve everything that goes out from the contractor they're managing or comes in to the contractor that they're managing, or they can be a little less involved and they're only notified when new interface agreements and requests are raised in the system. So that's really up to individual projects, and it can even go down to individual scopes of work. One last slide here before we get into a demonstration, how we manage this communication within Coreworx. I just wanted to kind of bring it all together for you. We talked about, scope package definition and breakdown during the feed stage, and the best practice of creating those interface points during that early phase of the project. So with Coreworx, we identify our scope packages. We support the creation of the interface points and the initial register. We also support the ability to manage interface information by phase of the project. So you would start off with detailed design and you may move into construction. And we have that ability to transition our interface register from detailed design into construction, and also support the different contracting strategies that come into play in that scenario. For each interface point, there can be multiple interface agreements created. And then we also support, and we're not really touching on it in this presentation today, but we also support the creation of action items and change requests as part of this entire model and process that we support. And one final thing, meetings. Alan really stressed the importance of meetings, and we fully agree, and we fully back that here at Coreworx. Interface management meetings are a must-have. You have to continually meet and communicate and collaborate. So even with the best automated tools and the best processes in place, you want to have that ongoing communication. Your meetings may be held weekly or bi-weekly. You really need to determine the frequency and what works for your project. Some projects are very lucky in that they get to support a yearly global interface management team, often at some exotic location where everybody gets together and they need to continue that collaboration and that contractor alignment, and that's very important. Meeting people face to face and working with them in that kind of environment certainly leads to a more open environment of sharing and communicating, and really understanding that interface management is a win-win for both parties. In some situations, you're the requester of information, and in other situations, you're the provider of information. And also very important is to record the minutes of your meetings. I've seen this done poorly, and I've seen it done very well, where they're holding an online interface meeting, with another party who's maybe in another country, and a lot of good information is flowing and being shared, but they fail to record those minutes, or they fail to update the interfaces as they're executing those meetings. So very important that you take minutes of your meetings or directly update your interface register as you're facilitating those meetings. All right, so this brings us to our second presentation and our second demo here. I'm again using some actors for the purposes of this demonstration. I have here Mason, and Mason is our interface manager for the SRU and utilities package. So he's that single point of contact for that scope package. And today, Mason needs to go into the system and create a new interface agreement. And then he's going to facilitate an online meeting with William, who's our second actor that we see here. And William is the interface manager for the inlet and gas processing facilities. And William is actually going to log on, and he's going to acknowledge receipt of the interface agreement that Mason creates and generates in the system. And this really will give you a good understanding and a good feeling for how communication is facilitated within the Coreworx application. So I'm just going to pop back over to Coreworx here. Oops. And I am going to log on as Mason. Again, Mason is the interface manager for the SRU and utilities package. He works for Flanagan Engineering, and he has quite a few common interfaces with Applied Materials and William, who is our interfacing party today. So the first thing that Mason wants to do when he comes into the system is he's going to create a new interface agreement. So he's going to go to our search page, and he's going to search for the SRU and utilities interfaces for the piping discipline. He's going to go ahead and execute that search and locate the interface point that he'd like to create a new interface agreement for. Now, you'll notice here that, this is our existing register. Mason's been working it for a few months now. Um, the other thing that he could have done here, because every document has a document number in Coreworx, the other nice thing about the ability to search this register is using that keyword search. So this is a Google type search. You can enter in a word, you can enter in a phrase, you can enter in a document number, and that will help to support, quickly locating the information in the register that you're looking for, because that's what it's all about. I mean, you want to ensure that people can locate information quickly and get up to speed quickly on what's going on with that particular, piece of information or particular document. So in this case, we have our cooling water return, this piping interface that Ian is going to create a new interface agreement for. Actually, sorry, I selected the wrong one here. It's this one here that we want to pick. I should have looked at the document number. But you'll notice here over in the actions column, based on the selected document, Mason has a number of actions that are available to him. For example, he could choose to modify the interface point. So if he had some additional details and information on the interface point, he could update that. Or for this one, he can create an interface agreement. You'll notice that some of the other options available here in the action column is, add it to my watch list. This is the ability to add interfaces from the register to your watch list. This is like a favorites. So it provides you quick access to those interface documents that you want to maybe monitor a little more closely over the next coming, over the upcoming weeks. Because, over time, again, depending on the scope of work that you're managing and certainly the size of your project, this interface register can grow quite large. Some other options are, I want to cancel this interface point. Maybe you've decided, working with the project team that this is not an interface, it's no longer required, and you want to cancel it. For this demonstration, Mason is actually going to create a new interface agreement. So we're going to go ahead and click on the interface agreement icon that you see there. And it's going to open up the interface point form. Now this should look very similar to you as the previous demonstration when we looked at the interface point. Fields that are required are referenced with the red asterisk. Gray fields that are grayed out, these fields are system generated. So they'll be populated by Coreworx as the interface agreement goes through its life cycle. So there's a couple pieces of information that Mason needs to provide in order to raise this interface agreement in the system. One is the title. Right, so he's requesting some technical information related to this piping interface. He's looking for the location and elevation. And he needs these pieces of technical information for his design. And in order to not, slow his progress down, he's going to indicate the date that he's looking for this information by. So we're going to extend this out. We're going to indicate that, you know what, I don't really need this information until the 25th of August. All right, so it's really flexible on determining your need date. We feel that getting interface agreements into the system early is a good thing. It allows you to manage and monitor that scope and the workload that you have for your team, over on a month-by-month basis. So the earlier you can get these requests into the system, the better. You'll notice here that a number of the fields on this form have already been pre-populated. That's coming from our parent interface point. So it's very quick for users to fill out the information and raise queries and interface agreement in the system because most of the data has been pre-populated. Again, down here with the requester and responding party, it knows who the logged in user is. I'm Mason, I work for Flanagan Construction, and I'm raising this interface agreement in the system. And it knows who my interfacing party is. All right, I'm interfacing with William, he works for Applied Materials, and he's the one that's going to provide this information to me. Again, I'm going to cheat a little. I'm just going to copy and paste my title into my short description and description fields on this form. Scroll down. Again, we have comments. Comments are very important, and I always encourage users to add comments. Whenever you can, add comments. It just adds to the clarity, adds to the understanding for the other parties, and it also adds to the ability for someone else to get up to speed quite quickly. If you leave this project and somebody else comes in to replace you, the more comments, the more information that has been provided on this form, the quicker they can get up to speed on where they stand with their interface register. Scrolling down again, of course, the ability to add file attachments, and then just the actions that are available to Mason here as creating this interface agreement in the system. I'm going to go ahead and click on submit. And again, Coreworx is going to, take over. This is a workflow-driven application, so the workflow is now going to route this interface agreement for reviews and approvals. A doc number is going to be assigned, and our interfacing party here, William, is actually going to receive an email notification. If he's turned that capability on in Coreworx, he will receive an email notification indicating that a new interface agreement has been raised in the system that he needs to respond to. So to show you what that process looks like and how the cycle of an interface agreement works, I'm actually going to log off here and log on as William. And here we are on the home page where you land when you log into Coreworx. And here's our Coreworx inbox. And here we can see this new request has been submitted. William needs to provide the location and elevation. He can see who requested this of him. He can see when it's required, the need date. And of course, the inbox has, filtering capabilities to filter things based on the need date. But this is a new request that he's received. He can click on the item to open it. And he actually has a couple of options here, and he's got a choice to make. So William receiving this request is going to review it. You'll notice the fields are locked down. He can't make changes to this form. But he can review it. He can determine, one, is he the right party to provide this information? Is the information being requested clear? Does he understand what's being requested? And three, is the need date achievable? Can he provide this information on the date that's being requested? If he agrees with all these things, he's going to accept and acknowledge this interface agreement. If he does not agree, he's going to send it back to Mason and ask Mason for clarity, or maybe he's going to ask for a different need date. So there can be that back and forth that occurs before the two parties reach a consensus and an agreement for this particular deliverable. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to accept it. So I acknowledge that this is an acceptable interface agreement request. I can meet the need date. And I'm actually going to go ahead and forward to one of my discipline leads who's supporting me. And this is Matthew. I'm going to forward this on to Matthew, and I'm going to ask Matthew to prepare this response. Scrolling further down on the form here, we see our history grid. So this is our audit trail, right? So we're starting to capture that very important audit trail for this particular document. The response, I don't have that right now, so I'm not going to fill that field in, but I am going to put some comments. I'm going to say, Matt, please respond. So these are just comments to my technical contact asking him to respond to this particular interface agreement. Scroll down again, and then here's the actions that I have available to me. Again, just to reiterate that, I could choose to clarify this request, so that would be in a situation where I had some questions on the deliverable, or I needed a change to the need date. I could respond directly to this interface agreement request if I had the answer. But in this particular case, we're going to do a forward to DC. I'm going to hit execute, and this request now is being forwarded to Matthew. And again, Matthew is receiving an email indicating that William has requested him to respond to a particular interface agreement. And that kind of is the sort of the initial cycle for an interface agreement request. That interface agreement is now part of the register. They will manage it and monitor it so that on or before August 25th, that response is provided to Mason. I'm going to log off and just log back on as Mason. The other thing I wanted to demonstrate to here today is the importance of, we discussed the importance of facilitating ongoing interface meetings. And one of the things that I've seen some of our projects do, and do it quite successfully, is to facilitate online meetings. And what they do is they set up a WebEx or an Adobe Connect session similar to what we're doing today, and they pull up the register. So now this is my ability to continue to collaborate and manage this register with somebody that's in another country or the other side of the world. In this particular case, again, I'm working with Mason and William, and we're going to pull up all of the interface agreements in our register. And one quick way to do this is to just simply select the request type as interface agreement, and then indicate the contracting parties that are participating in this meeting. So I want to find all the interface agreements between Flanagan Engineering, which is myself and the contractor that I work with, and Applied Materials, who's the other contractor, William, that I'm facilitating this online meeting with. I'm going to go ahead and execute search, and that returns all of the interface agreements. You'll see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we have 18 items that we need to discuss during this interface meeting. And then it's from there, it's just a matter of going through each and every one of these documents, or possibly only those that are, based on the need date coming due in the next 30 days, however you want to filter that register. But popping them up and going through them, taking a look at the information that is displayed here, and just getting a confirmation and a verification that we're still on track to provide this particular deliverable by that date. And again, we make use of the comments field here, right? So as you're discussing this in your online meeting, add the comments. If William gives you some information, add those comments here, update the register, and then you've got that information for moving forward. All right, and that's the end of our demonstration on communication and collaboration. So I'm going to log off here and just bounce back to our presentation. The one final thing that we want to talk about here is, very important need to continually monitor, control, and measure your progress. So certainly, as part of your early planning and part of the creation of your master plan, you need to identify your reporting and your KPI requirements. In fact, it's going to be these requirements that are going to drive the data that you capture on your interface points and your interface agreements. And when doing this, what you want to do is you want to think about your audience. Everyone has an obligation to report to someone. All right, so if you're the PMC managing the project, you have reporting obligations to the owner. If you're an EPC, you have reporting obligations to the project team. So you want to take those into consideration when you're developing what your reporting and your KPI metrics will look like. And certainly the goal here is to continue to measure and monitor the health of your program, really to stay focused on what's important, and to detect problems early. So you want those early warning indicators that can point you in the direction of potential problem areas. You want to think about what's important to you. So is it effective communication? You want to ensure that communication is happening. Are agreements being raised in the system and responded to? Maybe it's meeting agreed upon dates. You want to ensure that the dates that have been agreed upon are being met. What's the number or the percentage of overdue agreements that we have in our register, and then kind of follow up on that and understand why those agreement dates are not being met. Maybe you want to monitor scope and manage any increase in scope. Chances are it's all three, right? Well, you want to do it, and it becomes part of your reporting requirements for the project. The other thing that's very important, and it's kind of a key differentiator in being able to monitor and measure progress and ensure that you can stay on track, is through schedule integration. So this is the ability to align your interface activity with key milestones in the project schedule. Right? So you want to ensure that the interface agreements and the dates that are being negotiated for those agreements do not cause delays to your schedule. So you need to think about which interfaces you want to include in the schedule integration. Most projects will focus on high-risk interfaces, those that have a potential to impact the critical path, because you really need to, most projects have recognized and kind of understand that tracking everything is not achievable, and it's probably not even desirable. So you want to focus on those interfaces that represent the highest risk to the project. And it's really up to everyone every project to determine what constitutes a high-risk interface to them. So in our demonstration here, I am going to show you how Coreworx does schedule integration to help ensure that you remain aligned with your schedule activity. All right, so this is our final demonstration, and this is Ian. Again, we're using Ian. Ian is our interface manager for the project team. And Ian's just going to pop in today and execute a report. He does this on a monthly basis. He's has a reporting obligation to his project manager, and he includes this report every month as part of this reporting obligation. And he's also going to go in because he's just recently received a new schedule update from Mason, from our SRU and Utilities interface manager managing that project. So he wants to go in and just run that discrepancy report to ensure that everything's still aligned and on track with that latest schedule update. Pop over to Coreworx here and we'll log in as Ian. And the first thing what we're going to take a look at is that graphical dashboard. Coreworx provides a number of graphical views or graphical representations of the online interface register. So this is ability for the project team, the project manager, the interface managers to get into the system and really at a glance have that visual of how their interface register is progressing and if there's any areas of concern that they need to follow up on. So here we have the four of the graphical dashboards. We have a number that we offer, but everybody has the ability to customize their dashboard. So you'll pick and choose the reports that make, that provide you in your role the most value on the project. Probably one of my favorites and one of the most valuable reports, I believe, is the interface agreement early warning. So this report here, if you just draw your attention down to the report that's in the bottom left-hand quadrant here, it represents all of the interface agreements by scope package. So remember, this is an early stage of this project. They had just come out of a feed. Just a few of the scope packages have been awarded. That's why we only see 3 of the 16. If you remember, we had 16. So we have the 3 scope packages here. And then we have identified how many interface agreements they currently have in the register and what's the current status of those interface agreements. So we can see that we have a number that are in progress, and then we have a couple that have actually gone overdue. All right, so that's where you want to avoid is certainly getting into the red where you have interface agreements that are overdue. And that's where monitoring that early warning or monitoring those interface agreements that are coming due in the next 30, 60, 90 days is important because that will help you reduce those situations where you get into the the overdue interface agreements. The interface agreement status dashboard to the right here. This is the pie chart. This is a very flexible dashboard report, and that you can filter the information. So you'll see here that we're viewing this basically by all. We have all contractors, all packages, all phases, all systems, all areas, all disciplines. You can filter that information. So if you're working on a project and you're the piping discipline, you may want to filter that by the piping discipline. Only to monitor those piping interfaces because that's really your focus and that's what you're responsible for. So there's different ways to filter this information, and those are customizable for each user. One of the other benefits of these dashboards, I'll just show you here, is the ability to drill down. So on this particular dashboard report, I can click on those 17 accepted interface agreements, and I can get to a detailed report. So now you see I have that more tabular type report that gives me the details of those 17 interface agreements. And what's nice about Coreworx reporting is that we have the ability to export in a number of formats. So as you can see, we can export in PDF or Excel, and that's always very valuable, again, for that inclusion in reports, or if you want to take this and take it to a meeting with you. The other thing here is that each of these, every time you see a document number on Coreworx, it's a clickable link. So it allows you to click on that and to go view the details of that selected document. So we drilled down here right from the graphical overview of the entire register down to particular interfaces of a particular status, down to a single individual interface agreement that we can then take a look at, review, see the history, see all the comments, and follow up on that particular interface agreement. So a lot of power, a lot of value in these graphical reports. I'm going to close that window. I just want to show you one more thing. On the reports tab here, we actually have a number of reports. These cover everything from, statistic type reports to look ahead reports, scope increase reports. They're all available here, covering, again, our interface points and our interface agreements. One of the really powerful reports that we offer is this interface trends report. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this one. Again, as with the interface register itself, all of our reports and offer filter criteria. So you can filter the report based on information that you're looking for. So with this particular report, I'm just going to go ahead and say my date range is I want to look at my interface trends from current period to the end of the year. All right, I'll go ahead and execute that report. Or maybe you want to run it on a quarterly basis or a year by year. That's really up to you, and that option is available there. But this report returns back a nice graph here that's showing me on a month-by-month basis the interface agreements that are planned to be completed over each month versus the actual progress. All right, so we can see here that in February, we're planning to close out 2 interface agreements, and so far we've completed 1. Now these are kind of low numbers. Again, this register is a fairly new register and just starting off, but over time that's certainly going to grow. So of course, with this type of report, you want to ensure that the gap between what you're planning to complete and what your actual progress is does not get too great. If I scroll down a little bit on this report, we've also provided this chart that shows you all of the interface agreements for each scope package, the total count, what's currently open, and what's currently overdue, and also what's new this month and what's been closed this month. So it kind of gives you a complete picture of your interface agreements and what's going on for each contractor or each scope package. And then we use the red, yellow, green indicator to indicate if there's any potential problem areas. A very powerful report, at a click of a button, right? It's a click away, as opposed to taking those spreadsheets and manipulating them and managing them and combining that information. The final report I would like to show you today is our work schedule discrepancy report. I'll just click on that, and this report is very unique, in that it provides the ability to compare your interface register against a selected work schedule. So this could be the project work schedule, it could be a subset of that project schedule. So here we have our SRU and utility schedule that was provided to us for the January timeframe. I can set a tolerance filter on that if I choose to. I'm just going to go ahead and execute this report. So what this does is it's going to compare the interface activity to the schedule activity and run a comparison of the dates there, of the key dates. So you can see on the left-hand side of this particular report, we have the schedule information. So we have the WBS code, the activity ID, the activity name, and then we get into the interface data that you're capturing in Coreworx. So this particular activity has been related to or tied to an interface point. That interface point has an interface agreement that's been created for it. And if we continue to scroll over here, the final 2 columns here are what's really important. So we have the schedule date. So this is the planned completion date of that particular activity in the schedule. And what we are comparing it to is the need date of that particular deliverable in Coreworx. So that's the day-to-day activity that's occurring. You want to ensure that that remains aligned with those key milestones that have been identified in your schedule. So we can see for the first few, the dates are all in alignment. The agreement deliverables are coming in, on or before the schedule date, which is what you want to see. However, we do have a couple of activities here that are highlighted in red. And this is where we're highlighting to the interface manager the fact that you have a potential discrepancy here. So here we have the provision of a PNID, and the schedule says that that particular document of that particular status is due in August. However, the contractors at that daily execution level have an agreement in place that says it's not going to be provided until September. So that is a potential discrepancy. Now we're not going to update the schedule, and we don't want the schedule to update the interface register. We just want to bring that information to the attention of the project manager and the interface managers that are managing this. Now, it's up to the interface manager to either talk to the contractors and possibly bring that agreement in at an earlier time, or possibly you got to look at adjusting your schedule. But what we've been able to here is identify that there's a potential misalignment with the interface activity and the schedule activity. All right, so that's it for Ian today. I'm going to log off and just pop back to my presentation. And that wraps it up for today. We talked about the need for interface management, the project complexity and the need for additional efficiencies in managing the interface register. And then we really kind of broke it down into three different areas. We talked about scope definition and delineation and the importance of developing that preliminary interface register early on during the seed stage. We talked about communication and collaboration and the importance of, facilitating and providing a platform that can really encourage and provide that ability for your interfacing teams to communicate and collaborate on an ongoing basis. And then finally, we talked about the need to continually monitor, control, and measure progress. Right? You want to ensure that your interface program remains on track, that your interfaces are being managed, and that the interface agreements are being closed out in a timely manner. And that's all I have for today. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope I was able to demonstrate to you the value that Coreworx provides in managing your project interfaces in support of that, online central register for your interface register. Thank you.